Hello, this is the first video tutorial on the workflow for the course we're dealing with at the moment at 713 interior design. This is pretty much to try to help out with how do we move from Rhino into Revit, some basic points in Revit that will be useful for you, and how to take that documentation that we're extracting from Revit and take it into InDesign. So basically the workflow of the course. Okay, so let's start. I have my base project. I have it clean. I have the dimensions. You don't need to have these exact dimensions. You might have slightly different ones, but you know, as an overall idea, it should be close to this. This is the dimensions again of the interior space of the gallery where we are going to implement our project. If I open other examples I have created very fast, I have like a project skin. Again, you could name them as you wish, and you probably have different models. We probably recommend starting smooth and clean with a simple project, probably more cubic condition or like boxy. But I would personally encourage that all of you try one of the more complex configurations and try to extract some of the walls out of that conceptual mass, etc. Okay, so this is my project screen. I only have 3 examples, but you're welcome to use more examples or less. It is pretty open-ended kind of a project that you should start deciding from where you select walls and from where not. This I call it project void. As you can see, we're going to start in Revit selecting faces and declaring different faces as walls and as current systems, etc. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is take the base model. So I'm going to select that one. Again, it's that in red, and I'm going to just export, select it, and you have to export it as SAT. Okay, let me go back to my folder at Pratt. There we go. I'm going to save everything here. I'm going to call this project base, and again it's SAT. I'm going to save that, say OK to the default settings. I'm going to actually do that for the 3 projects, and again you might select 3, 4, 5, whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to select those 2. Just be sure not to select any other material. Export selected, SAT. I'm going to call this project, I think it was skin. Say OK. And the third one, project void. I'm going to select it, export SAT, project void. Okay, say OK. And in theory, we don't need more of Rhino. We should be pretty much done here. It could happen then when you're back in Revit and you say, I wish one of the planes was a bit higher or lower. You can always just edit. I don't know, you can just play Control Shift and select one of the faces and move it slightly, and start kind of deforming some of the components or doing another Boolean difference or intersection or whatever condition to somehow change and modify some of the conditions of the model. As you can see, you can do it quite fast in Rhino, and then you could just export it again and take advantage of that face. Okay. We'll see that we can do that also a little bit in Revit. So I'm going to close Rhino, just thinking that this is done. Okay, I'm going to go to Revit. Remember, we're working both on projects and on the specific family called conceptual mass. I'm going to start opening a project, and I'm going to use the architectural template. You should be pretty much familiar with this template at this moment. It shows the elevation marks here, and you have the project browser properties and just a series of tabs here in the top, and another little kind of a visibility strategy tab here. We need to bring somehow 3D volume, that SAT that we exported from Rhino. The way to do it, I mean, there's several ways. We're going to do it mainly under the conceptual mass interface. So I'm going to go Revit here. I'm going to say new conceptual mass. I'm going to select the only option you have there. And this is a bit more like similar to how Revit works. As you know, shift and center button to orbitate. You can scroll in and out with the center button of your mouse, and you can just select with the left button easily. When you select one of these reference planes, it turns blue, as you can see. And just remember, if you want to construct something in the conceptual interface, the way it works is that you first always select a reference plane, and then you create whatever curves you want. It will be drawn on that reference plane, and then you can escape a couple times, select the curve, and then use the magic button, create form. Okay, that allows you to create extrusion. But again, if you had other set of lines or other, positioning of the lines, and you select both by pressing Control, it will just automatically understand you want to do something else. So that said, this button, create form, is somehow like the magical button that does everything for you, from extrusions, revolves to sweeps, etc. Okay. Let's bring that SAT into place here. I'm going to say Insert, Import CAD, and we're going to search for SAT files, whatever we saved it. Okay, so we're going to go to SATA-U. This is where I save all of my stuff here, Pratt. And here it is. I have them, the three all together. Just make sure you have origin to origin. You'll see why now in a second. Say open. Something I mentioned in Rhino is that it is important that you position your different proposals always in relation to the 0, 0 in the same place. So that means that when I bring another conceptual mass, it's going to be exactly placed in the 0, 0 coordinate. If I select this option here, it comes like a whole block. You can always explode it partially here, so you can have like a more straightforward SAT configuration. The way this would have been the same as selecting the reference plane, creating a box of that dimension. I'm just going to do a similar here. Select the line and create form. There you go. So these are, in that sense, very similar. You can select the lines and shift, the same as here. I can start tapping around and, wait, let me see. I can actually change these dimensions by selecting tab and the entire element. You can do pretty much almost the same things as in the conceptual mass. So I'm going to just go back with that. Okay. Good. After this, what we need to do is load it into the project. By the way, that step of exploring is actually not necessary, just for you to understand that if you press tab and select the whole thing, you can still change some of the parameters here if you wanted to. For the base project, we really don't need to explore it at all. No. I'm going to load into project. This what allows us to take this conceptual mass, this family element, into the project. But before that, I recommend always to save it. And if you save this, you're not saving an SAT, you're saving an RFA, which is a Revit family type. I'm going to call it project base and not SAT, so it's clean, save. You should do that 3 times with the rest of the project. I'm gonna just jump into load into the project. Okay, what it does is tries to place it wherever you want it, and as you can see, the location point is actually that 0, 0. You don't want to place it anywhere. You want to place it exactly in the 0, 0 coordinate. So I'm going to escape that. I'm going to go to the side view here. The side view is pretty much a floor plan, but allows you to see that origin point. It has a different scale, and it's also like seeing over the rooftop. So basically seeing the project from high up in a invisible level above all the projects. So what we can do now is press component, and that will allow you to load the latest family. In this case, it's project base, and now you can click and snap to the 0. Okay, it wants to place more options, so I'm going to escape that. I'm going to go to 3D, and there we have it, our basic project. Okay, at this point, it is good that we explain what's the difference between this thing that we see and any other element within the Revit project interface, such as walls. If I click on walls and drywall here, this will be a wall. They look similar as in geometry, but they're entirely different kind of a geometrical entities. This is project material, let's say project entities, okay, that you've selected, and you will see a different set of parameters, such as wall parameters. You can change the type of floor, and it will change automatically the type of floor. As you can see, it gets thicker in exterior walls, or you can do interior partitions, a little thinner. It will be red if I go and double click on floor plan, be red as a section cut, and this will be red like slightly different. If you go to fine view, you will start seeing the layers that form that plan. You can change that and see how other layers set will be. You see it's many layers, and you cannot actually change what's happening here. There are different elements. They're just somehow in the same place, coexisting at this moment. Okay, I'm gonna go to 3D, and that's a wall. Obviously, any other architectural element, its proper element, or is like a common element within the project interface, and this is actually a common element more from the conceptual mass world, but they have to play somehow, and the question is how they play together the game. Well, I'm gonna delete this wall. For walls, for roofs, for floors, and for curtain systems, you can always say create a wall by face, by a conceptual mass face. If you want to know which options you can do by face, you can always go to massing inside, and this is a good interface to work at this stage. As you can see, as I said before, you have roofs, walls, floors, and curtain systems. This is pretty much what you can do with any of these faces. A very important button to know is this one. Is a toggle that allows you to turn on and off anything that relates to faces. Okay, so if you say click there, it will turn off the entire massing, but if you have floors, it will turn it off as well, and if you click again, it will turn it on. Okay, needless to say, this is another category. It's called mass category. So if I go to visibility and graphics and I search for the categories here, these are all the categories, and you can play with their visibility. If I go to M, here is mass. So mass is actually one of the little categories that allows you to somehow see it and hide it, or show it and hide it, by both clicking here and also using this button. It's actually the only one. So in theory, if we go back to visibility and graphics, mass, if it's checked, it should be visible, and if it's unchecked, it should be invisible. Okay, but because this particular element has this tool as well, it kind of runs by both kind of buttons. To show that this visibility and graphic works, I'm going to create a wall again. I'm going to go VV is the shortcut for visibility and graphics, or if you want, you can go to manage, view, visibility and graphics. It goes to the exact same point. I'm going to go to W, walls, and I'm going to uncheck that and apply, and you see how the category of walls will be here. This is pretty much almost like a layer concept in AutoCAD, but it goes by categories. Okay, so I can say apply, and it shows it again. Again, the only one that has this particularity is masses, because you don't only control masses by checking here, but also by the massing inside interface. Okay, good. So, I think it's good to kind of stop this video and talk about how we start creating walls, floors, etc. in a given conceptual mass. Okay, so I'll stop the video there and for the next one.